Hi, I'm Rebecca Brand, and today we're going to make beef stroganoff. This is such a hearty dish to make for your family. It is so delicious, and the cut of beef is pretty reasonable. The ingredients for this dish are beef, and any cut will do. I buy the one that's the grocery store's special for the week. Mushrooms, onions, garlic, beef bouillon. I've thrown some chives in there just so it's pretty. Sour cream, butter. I like extra wide egg noodles. Salt and pepper, flour, and oil for frying the beef. So when the beef is on sale, that's a time to be inspired to make this recipe. I bought this. This is just top round. And it's a great beef to use for this. You can use sirloin, you can use ground beef if you had to. I like to cut it across the grain, and I'm only cutting it in like very thin strips. A trick is to throw this into the freezer for about a half an hour, and then it makes it a lot easier to cut. This recipe is the classic recipe. I like recipes where I can feed an army. I'm using 2 pounds of beef today. You get to use a cheap cut of beef for this because you're going to simmer it until it's tender. When I get a fatty piece of meat, I'm going to throw that in for flavor, but I'm not necessarily going to serve that to my VIP guest at the table. But that's going to have a lot of lusciousness for the sauce. If you use a chuck roast, it'll have lots of fat in it, and so cut around the gristle or at least pick it off at the end so it doesn't get stuck in someone's mouth and they want to chew forever. This is a really elegant Russian dish, and it's a classic 1950s recipe, which I like. It's my genre. So turn a very heavy skillet on high. The next step is browning the beef to get some of the sugars out. So I throw in, 2 tablespoons of cooking oil in it, and then you put your beef in. Oh yeah, there's the sizzle. I like the sizzle. Just swirl it around the pan. And you know what? There is not a lot of surface area here, so I'm throwing it all in, and it's just going to have to make friends with its neighbor. It is spattering, it is hot. You be careful, but I like to get to the finish line fast, so I like to use a lot of hot heat if I'm nearby the stove to watch it. So what I'm doing now is just pressing the little ones that got on top of the others onto the bottom. The secret to really great sauces is the browning that happens on the side of the beef. I know there's many out there that want to keep turning and flipping, but what happens is you get gray beef. I want brown beef. I hear that sizzle sound is softer. It's because all that cold beef has brought that temperature down. I am ready to step away from the scene here and go get my mushrooms ready. I have found that the quickest way for me to get mushrooms without that gritty dirt on them is just to put them in the sink and one by one get them wet and feel for the grit. Oh man, there are so many mushroom brushes out there, and that's what a lot of people like to do because they say you're adding moisture into your mushrooms if you do this. Well, you can see I am going so fast. Hey, they don't have time to suck up that moisture, and anyways, they're going to go into a sauce. So any mushroom moisture that leaks, it's going to be tasty. I'm okay with that. So cutting these mushrooms, I am going to do a rough chop. And the reason I do that is because it's quick and it's easy. There's a lot of things to get ready for dinner when you're making dinner. And so this is something that is one of those details that a lot of chefs will be beautiful and the mushrooms will be all perfectly sliced like that. The kind of slicing that you would have to do to get the beautiful, perfect, even slices is a little too time consuming for me. So I give it a rough chop. This beef has been cooking as long as I've been slicing those mushrooms. I'm going to salt it now, and that's 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and I'm peppering it, and that's 1/4 teaspoon of pepper that's going in there. This is fresh cracked, and now we're going to flip. And in my years of experience, I think I'm going to get a brown on the other side. Let's see. No, that is gray. Oh my goodness, I need to give myself a ticket for that. That's not going to work. I have this on high. This is a very big burner on my stove, but it is not brown on the side. So I am disappointed. That thing had better brown up by the time I get those onions done. Let's see. I'm going to cut my onions for a rough chop. In half, peeled, and chopped, and I used 2 onions for this recipe, but these are small onions. In this recipe, you don't have to have everything perfect. Today I used 2 pounds of beef and 2 pounds of mushrooms and 1 pound of onion, but close to that in any quantity or dimension is just fine. And I'd like 2 cloves of garlic in this recipe too. I'm putting 3 teaspoons of beef bouillon into this. And when I think of 3 teaspoons, what that means is that's 3 cups of liquid that's eventually going to go in here for that sauce. And that's going to perfectly spice that. Let's see if I'm getting any brown on the edge of this. Oh, there we go. There's the color I'm looking for. You see that? That's what you want when you do your flip, because you want all that flavor to be in your beef stroganoff. Check out the sides of this pan. I see that happening. I don't want that to burn though. So I'm going to take some of the liquid from the beef pan. I'm going to clean that pan. I want those little bits in my dish and stir up that bouillon in it. There. Oh man, it's smelling delicious now, and that color is gorgeous. Oh, and with that beautiful sauce and a little bit of fat that came off the beef, I am now adding 2 tablespoons of flour. That's going to give the sauce an extra richness. That gets stirred up too. Ooh, lost one. There we go. Oh, that's going to finish cooking while I finish prepping my vegetables. Now I'm going to take the beef out of here and put it in another pan so that I can have plenty of pan space to do the same to my mushrooms and my onion. Add 1 cup of water to glaze the pan. Otherwise, that's going to stick and you're not going to get the flavor, and it's going to burn with the next step. All that stuff down there is what we want. So I use a stainless steel pan with this recipe and a flat spatula, because that makes scraping it up easy. Done chum with that part, and now we're going to add our butter. And we're going to melt this butter because the mushrooms love to be in melted butter. And those 2 fatty heads of garlic get to hang out with the butter, and the reason is I want them to flavor the butter so the garlic taste infuses into the mushrooms. The mushrooms are going to have a whole heck of a lot of moisture coming out, because they always do. And so I save the onions to add later. I want the mushrooms to be brown like I had the beef brown. So add them in now. And this is still on high. This whole recipe has been on high. Oh, now look at these mushrooms. See the moisture that comes out? It's amazing how much water is in a little mushroom. They seem pretty dry to me. So they're getting stirred up, and I think it's time to add those onions because the moisture is really getting out of those mushrooms. That's what I'm looking for, because otherwise the onions are going to boil and not brown. In they go. Okay, give them a swirl. And keep the mushrooms over there in their lane so these can get some color too. Add some salt and pepper. That's about another 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is 2 big pinches, and a little pepper. And that's about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Done. Those onions have been in there for about 5 minutes. It's time to turn them and see if we got any color on them. And we did. There's the color. Wow. So now let's incorporate it, stir them all around. I can smell the beautiful mushrooms and onions. And now it's time to add the beef. Oh man. And now we're going to add water. I'm adding 1 cup to the stock because it's got to simmer. And another cup for a total of 2 cups at this part. That is now going to simmer for an hour. That is going to get rich and thick over just a few minutes. Again, it's still on high. When it comes to another boil, I'll turn it down. But right now, it's got to bring that temperature up. And high is the way I do it. That stroganoff has been cooking now for 30 minutes. I'm turning this down to medium low, because you want a low temperature to soften the meat. Oh, that looks gorgeous. Look at that sauce. And that sauce is even gonna get thicker as time goes by. Fill this halfway up. And I'm gonna add, just because I have the vegetable oil handy, maybe a lid on it. I'm gonna pour it. Minute, it's very critical to stir your pasta. Let a little air come up and down goes the heat to medium. Time. 11 minutes. 11 minutes. There is some heat in this kitchen today. Get all the extra water out of those nooks and crannies. Now it goes back in the pot. I do this over the sink. We're steaming up the windows today. Put your heat on low. It'll melt in no time flat. I needed a whole cube of butter. Okay. Butter noodles. So this has been simmering an hour. Look at how saucy and beautiful that is. That's the right thickness for me of the gravy. If you want to add some flour because you didn't achieve that, that's fine. And if yours is too thick and you want to add some more water, that's great. Now that richness is perfect for me. You might have to add a little flour or maybe some water to get it to look like that. And then you want to taste it. That's perfect. You can always add a little more of the granules or salt if you like. I like beef stroganoff on a really rich base of butter noodles. Okay, scoop it out on top and get those mushrooms. Yum. Now, I could have added sour cream into the pot and stirred it up, but for appearance purposes, I'm sticking it like this so you can see how you can present it at a dinner party. And then everybody else can stir it up on their own. And some people like a little more or a little less sour cream, depending on the caloric intake for that day. Oh my goodness, now it's time for the bite. Okay, I want a little beef and I want a little mushroom. Okay. This is to die for. I'm gonna mush that sour cream into the sauce. Look at that. Is that gorgeous? And I'm gonna take another bite just for prosperity purposes. Subscribe to my channel. Let's keep making great things in the kitchen. Like beef stroganoff.